Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is August 16th, and we are doing space, environment, AI, and nonsense. I had to think about what the last category was.
As I hinted at in our last episode, we may have some folks that are stuck on,
in literal limbo.
That Boeing Starliner, what's going on?
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Okay, I'll fix it. You can still read.
ISS astronauts on 8-day mission may be stuck until 2025, NASA says.
2025?
This is a real Gilligan's Island kind of thing. It's a 3-hour tour now. They're just trapped.
20XT6. Yeah, they were only supposed to be up there for 8 days. 8 days.
That was, I think they went like July, didn't they? Or June?
Yeah.
They've been there a while.
They have confidence remains high in Starliner's return with crew on August 2nd. And then
it did not happen.
Here we are.
I don't think confidence was that high internally at NASA. Otherwise, they'd be home.
Definitely a quick read on the Guardian story. We just mentioned it for the lulz. Now,
I kind of just want to get updates. Sometimes I'll forget about it, and then I see the headline again, and I'm like, wow, they're still not back.
I'm sure Elon Musk could get them down. Maybe they could parachute. I don't know.
To burn up in the atmosphere?
Yeah. I love our next story and I included the Guardian version because just to get a lens through a different culture.
Street food. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. boasts of a freezer full of roadkill. And I'll be honest, I don't super care for this guy, but is this the weirdest thing he's done? Because I would eat roadkill if it was fresh.
Chad, I have a confession. My family, we've literally...
Yeah.
It's they hit a deer.
That's free food.
You'll just scoop that up and convert it into food.
That's a lot of programs around here. I mean, it's more focused on hunters, not necessarily roadkill, but there's the food pantries here accept game like that. That's just normal to us, but...
I mean, you have to put some work in. It's not going to, if it's 3 days old, it's not.
Yeah. No, you don't eat that. Something's been baking in the sun for a week.
But a couple of times growing up was we're going to have to make room in the freezer. Yeah. So
the porch freezer?
Yeah, the porch freezer.
The porch freezer.
She knows, yeah.
And the porch couch.
Yeah, it's a totally normal thing. I guess if somebody grew up, a very sheltered existence, that might seem insane.
Meat comes from the supermarket.
I mean, it's a little gamey. It wasn't fabulous.
I never understood the people who say that. Maybe I'm just blunt, but I feel like I've always had deer and it's always been well prepared. I've never noticed a gamey taste to it.
Deer's pretty good. Goat is definitely more gamey and it's more like dark meat. Pig is usually pretty good. Especially farm pig is amazing compared to supermarket pig.
That's pig, yeah. I don't think I've ever had squirrel.
Squirrel gravy is something different. It's got a little bit of a zing to it. Squirrel brains I didn't care for. Mm. It was it's fatty and almost a little sweet, but not. I don't care
not
for
in a good way.
But squirrel gravy was pretty delicious.
I've always really liked deer. I've never understood the complaints that it tastes gamey, but
fresh cow was also pretty delicious, but. Fun times. But who's not having a fun time?
Couple accidentally books fraudulent listing for a pool. Glendale Police arrive with guns drawn. The homeowners thought that someone was just trespassing in their pool.
This is I'm going to unlock a new phobia for you, chat. I hadn't considered this would be a thing, but it totally is a thing. There's an app where you can Airbnb your pool.
Swimly, I think is what it was.
And so that's what this couple did. Completely innocent. They went on Swimly. They paid. It's I've got a time reservation from this time to this time. They went to the pool. Whoever listed it on Swimly knew that the people that owned the pool were out of town, but they had a camera system. And so the people that were out of town called the police and said, hey, we're out of town. There's people in our pool. There's not supposed to be anybody there. Not connected at all to the Swimly listing. Somebody would just
list your pool.
List somebody
There's no
else's
verification process.
No. And Swimly was not very cooperative about...
They didn't even get a refund.
No.
So luckily
Once
Luckily,
the story ran, they got a refund. But
the police, I don't know that they did, at least in this version of the story I read, but the police, I guess, like, they had guns drawn and stuff, and they said it took a minute for them to be like, no, like, there's been a mistake, and thankfully, didn't have charges or anything pressed. Also, their dog, they were swimming with their dog, the dog got out safe.
Usually, on a story like this, I mean, I'm usually not a fan of the way that police respond to a situation.
But the dog's alive, so.
And also, in a situation where police are called like this, usually meth is involved.
Yeah, someone's running around my property and I'm not there.
Yeah, in this case, no. The police said, we didn't charge them. There's nothing wrong here.
This was a mistake. That being said, if you are a homeowner or just anyone and you're going on vacation, don't post about it beforehand because you never know who's looking.
You may want to look into some home assistant automations to make it look like your home. Well,
or just don't post it on social media because they clearly saw that and then they were like, this person has a pool. We can make money on this.
We're going to get some free money.
Yeah. No. It would have worked if they didn't have the camera system.
I have my doubts about this working too.
Sandwich to star power, mayonnaise may unlock never unstable nuclear fusion.
So this apparently has something to do with the physics of mayonnaise, not being a liquid except when it's under pressure.
It's solid, but my question is why mayonnaise? Like, could you do the same thing with like pudding? Do they like pudding would be less smelly than mayonnaise? And there's less eggs, so like there's less chance of it.
Maybe the egg component is the thing that makes it do what it's doing, and whereas pudding goes bad after a day or two.
Would it? I feel like mayonnaise would be worse for that.
Mayonnaise lasts like a week when it's been left sitting out.
Well, yeah, if it's like, I think that's the other. There's so many questions about the condiment, about like, are they using like the super, oily kind, whatever that they get at the supermarket that's full of preservatives, or are they making it fresh? Like,
it's not edible after 5 days, but it's still a pretty similar consistency.
I guess, yeah, maybe that's what matters.
So that's the kind of consistency that they want for plasma reactions, or fusion reactions. It's like we want it to be a solid most of the time, because that I guess will be easier to manage the fusion part of it. But then under extreme pressure, it turns into a liquid. I don't know.
I'm trying to think of other foods. Pudding.
I'm sure that a lot was lost in translation for this news article, so I wouldn't put too much time into speculation.
No, think about it more. And also type your stuff in the thing below.
Maybe someone can leave us a link to the RXV paper as opposed to whatever this is.
This article, yeah.
Speaking of things I want the RXV article for.
New York City subway riders are breathing in hazardous air, study finds.
No, this is not a repeat from the 80s.
It's a new one.
Yeah, it turns out the subway air in New York City is not fabulous. And there may, not in the Guardian story, but sometimes they may take readings in the middle of winter when everything is cold and like whatever processes are producing the hazardous gases aren't producing as much of it. Meanwhile, in the middle of summer and everything being 85 degrees, even in New York City, not fabulous.
Especially in New York City because there's so much concrete everywhere.
Yeah, so they were breathing 4 times the level of pollution exposure deemed safe by the EPA.
The thing I wondered about this is this common everywhere with underground subways and train systems.
Usually they've got a pretty good filter system. Like if you keep your eyes open and you look around in the ceiling, you'll see like very large filters or very large vents, and usually they're filthy. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a lot of air being like
moved out, yeah.
Yeah, and grease. It's almost like a kitchen. It's like people get hot and sweaty, and then like whatever comes off and evaporates, and then it's just like ugh.
Human sludge.
Yeah, a lot of sludge.
They mentioned too, like something about with like where the trains break and stuff. Like there's like metal in the air as well, and that's one of the contaminants. Yeah.
Yeah, not fabulous. Definitely dangerous. And paper is
also dangerous. Paper cut physics pinpoints the most hazardous types of paper. Spoiler alert, it's dot matrix. Most of us probably not using that anymore. So
no. Although it's amazing, did somebody get paid for putting this together? Like, how do you get that engagement? How do you get that job? It's like, we're going to give you some money, and then you're going to tell us which type of paper is the most dangerous.
Well, they said they didn't even test it on humans. It was like a gelatinous cube that they tested it on.
A simulacrum of skin, if you will. It's like,
The other thing they said magazines were the second worst.
The way that made it sound is that it has to be at a particular thickness. So I would think that like the reinforcing properties of certain magazine pages, having the ink really, like whatever process that is, really thickly layered on. Because, you're flipping through the pages in a magazine, and it's like the printed page feels different than like a full page ad. So it's like, the
thicker paper they said was better because it's like a blunt knife. Yeah.
So
it's thin paper that you got to watch out for.
A thin paper that is reinforced in some way, because otherwise it buckles too soon. So maybe we can get some money to study that, or maybe we can. We have a workforce that can moonlight and work on some of those things for some extra income. We might have to.
U.S. chip factory workers say it is a struggle to survive on their wages as the industry booms.
So this is a Guardian article. One thing it leaves out is there was another article this week about TSMC struggling to understand the American work ethic, which is when TSMC calls their workers at midnight to say, hey, something is going wrong in the factory, can you come in? That people are angry about that. Apparently in Asia, not angry about that, or not in Taiwan. It's like, oh, something's not right? Yes, I will report in immediately.
Whereas I will leave my children and my family and come in immediately.
Yeah. Whereas in Arizona, it's that's overtime, right?
Yeah, I would get up if it was overtime.
So the Guardian article has a breakdown of U.S. chip factory workers complaining about not being able to make enough, not having a living wage, and not having had raises in a while. I've definitely gotten a lot of tips in the past couple of weeks about people not making, their bonuses, or it's like, hey, we think this is underperforming, and it's like, well, you're really splitting hairs if you say this is underperforming, because this is actually, we're meeting quota on this, and this.
There's also a link to like the union's demands, and one of the things was like 26 per hour, I think, and I was like, that seems pretty reasonable for Arizona. Like, they're not asking for a ton.
These are also jobs that typically are insanely way automated, but if they are insanely way automated, you have to have typically a much deeper and broader knowledge of how all of the tooling and the machinery and the software works, and you might have different sub-specializations in how all of that works, and because of that, I think it is a bit skilled. Like, it's not just make sure that machine A is shoveling its output into machine B. It's a little more complicated and subtle than that. And so I'm surprised that this would be an issue, especially in the current economic climate and finding skilled labor. And especially, hey, you understand this process and what goes into it. Would you like to take a day a week and do more extra corporate training and just find where somebody's natural boundary is for the skills that they're willing to acquire or that they're able to acquire, and then you have a more skilled workforce? But that takes investment in individuals, and I don't want to do that. If we invest in them more, they'll just go to work for Samsung or TSMC or a different... Then we have to pay them more. Semiconductor company. But you don't have to pay them more if there's only one onshore semiconductor company. That's the thing. Definitely not fabulous. But, engagement challenge, do you work in this industry or adjacent to this industry? How bad are things? Because it seems like if you were in this industry, you should be making a lot of money because there's a lot of demand for this, unless the imports are offsetting that and you have less opportunity to do that. I don't know. I don't see the boom letting up anytime soon, but then there's headlines like this. OpenAI could go bankrupt in 12 months if it doesn't raise some serious cash, but is the Microsoft-backed AI giant too big to fail? This is from IT Pro. There were also some other news stories this week about OpenAI losing, like brain drain from OpenAI was a popular variation of the headline. And so this is just saying, hey, is OpenAI stuck in a rut? We need to start thinking about large language models in a different way. They also mentioned that they spend $700,000 per day running it. And it's like, gosh, I don't know how you make that. How do you make that back? We need more faster GPUs sooner. That's a lot of money. Of course, if you have products like this that actually take off. I fully plan on winning the industry. Someone on Twitter last week, I think, sent me this guy is a startup founder. He said he's developed an AI, or he wants to develop an AI that's like a necklace called Friend. And everybody watching this has heard of Friend. And it talks to you and blah, blah, blah. But you should read this article because this guy is insufferable. And it is a delightful comedy of errors listening to him talk. This article may have been bait for Ryan. It was a little bit. One of my favorite things that they point out is that he got I think it was 1.5 billion or maybe 2 billion in startup cash.
And he spent the majority of it acquiring friend.com, the domain name.
Okay.
Hope you're feeling good about that early investment.
It's going to be wild when some other demographic that's completely off of our radar is, oh, this is the AI tool that I needed. I must have it. I'm going to use it more than my cell phone.
Younger people, at least we did an article about or story about it a while back where it was like young people really liked the Snapchat friend AI. But that just runs on your phone. Why do you need a necklace? The necklace is kind of dorky looking. So, I mean, I already have a phone.
It may end up being a story like this.
Humane's daily returns are outpacing its sales, surprising no one.
A lot of people bought this because it has similar functionality, but it can also project onto your hand, and no one liked it.
It's just hard to everyone's already got the phone. Well, not everyone, but most people already have a phone.
I should get one for the meme and lulz value.
You should get the necklace one, the friend necklace.
A kind soul actually sent me a Google Glass, which I've been experimenting with, and that is an amazing piece for the archive and the museum. And I'm surprised it didn't catch on. Like, if you had the right software package, there are some really genuinely useful things that it could do. But the battery life is pretty terrible, and the functionality out of the box is pretty terrible. But like the optics and the idea behind the optics and everything else, I guess if it's not just, it's very, it would have to be very utilitarian society because wearing it is distracting. So I imagine if you're another person, somebody wearing that is like, oh, it's like, do you have, it's like, is something wrong with you? Is that an assistive device? No? Okay. I mean, it kind of is.
It's a fashion. It's a look, as the kids say.
But The Verge's article reads you in on how Humane got to here. And their big thing was the marketing thing, which was structured basically around less is more. But it turned out less is less.
Less is just less, and it's an expensive device, so nobody's buying it. Everyone's returning it.
And this week, in I think it was probably about a month ago or 6 weeks ago, we had a story where Indian outsourcing firms have downsized for the first time in like history, IT outsourcing. And so this is the next thing that sort of follows from that. People are starting to notice.
AI is coming for India's famous tech hub.
Now, someone who's experienced code that has come from India that was not amazing. I mean, I've had some good code from India too.
I think it probably depends on where you're outsourcing to, but
sometimes it's not fabulous. Sometimes it's very bad. And sometimes I've noticed that the language barrier suddenly gets much worse out of the blue when it had been fine. When it's like, no, this is not how this is supposed to work. This is how it's supposed to work. And then it's like, oh, it's like, no, it's not a translation thing. It's not a language barrier thing. It's like, come on, you can get this done.
In some ways, it's almost like two languages, right? Because you're going from one to the, and then you also have the actual programming language involved.
And so MSN has a story here about, hey, it turns out that AI for a lot of those like very low level coding jobs, that those actually could replace some of the jobs that are currently done in India's tech hub. So.
It's not going to replace jobs, though. Remember,
it's I think that's probably not the right way to think about it. I think the way to think about it is that is a force multiplier for the people in India that actually know what they're doing. So a good developer in India could use AI tools to double or triple their output and get the same amount of work done, which probably is going to result in a higher wage from them for them as well. But the people that were like trying to break into it and just sort of stumbling around, and people were willing to tolerate that because it was so cheap. That is going away.
This article pointed out a lot of people will probably stop outsourcing to India entirely because the cost is going to be
at parity.
Yeah,
because labor. But AI is coming everywhere. Apple is even getting in on the AI stuff.
Oh, Mac rumors, they're tiny, tiny headlines. Apple's hidden AI prompts discovered in macOS beta.
So you get an idea for what Apple's thinking for their AI, and it's just like, so you are a helpful assistant who can. Look
how long I started reading that and I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot of instructions.
I think this is where, like, unless we alter trajectory on where we're going with large language models, I think this is how we're going to end up with useful AI models. Is like, it's all about context. And so if you give a model an insanely deep context, so instead of having even this length of context, imagine like a 20,000 word context that is, your education started here and you took these classes which covered these topics and you learned about these algorithms and this worked this way, and then you spent this time working on this and your dissertation.
Well, what university did they go to?
Well, I mean,
what methodology did they learn?
The prompt just gives them context for all the different possible kinds of things that you could ask for, like they experienced that education, or those prompts will bring in the pieces of stuff from the neural network that is related to the words in the prompt. So then when you ask a question, you get all that context for just, a couple of sentences. And I think that if we're going to stop large language model hallucination, it's probably going to be a process like that, where it always has to refer back to something that isn't lost through the compression and the process of creating the links inside the neural network. Maybe. I don't know.
I'm just stuck on the education bit. Like, pretend you're educated in this, but it's like, where were they educated? How were they educated? Because I've been dealing this week with like an other group of designers where it's like things that I think are very basic knowledge are not basic knowledge to them, even though we both have technically design training and design education. So it's like, what does that mean if you're a large language model? Do you understand that? Like, people
retain different things experiencing the same. It's like, everybody experienced X, but everybody remembers it differently.
Right. And so it's like, do you ever solve it? I don't know.
It turns out you can actually work on training your brain the way that you train muscles. It's like, this is how I should organize new memories. This is how I should relate this to this. But we don't teach that. It's weird. Yeah. It makes us not very effective as a society, because then it's like, wait a minute, I can't disassemble this thing that's complicated because my brain doesn't work. But maybe that won't matter. Maybe the robots will just take care of us.
They'll assemble and disassemble. This AI humanoid robot helped assemble BMWs at a U.S. factory. He looks like he's thinking about, like, am I human? Like, he wants to like run a knife across his palm.
What is my purpose? You carry carburetors. Oh, God.
Oh, no.
That's basically what's going on inside of BMW.
I was trying to find the clip from Ex Machina where he, like, cuts his hand on the mirror and, like, slams it. I cannot. It's not on YouTube anywhere. I was trying to send it to a friend this week.
Yeah, they probably have taken it down because it's getting a little too close to home. But we will see that in our lifetime. Like, I think the other thing that blows my mind is that I think Stephen Fry he's the one that said that the first person to live to be 200 years old has very likely been born. So it's wild to think about that. It's also wild to think about this.
Oh no! Analyst predicts $20 monthly fee for Apple Intelligence.
Well, if the internet is useless without it, yeah, what are you going to do? Not pay it? Be lost in the wilderness outside the walled garden?
Gosh.
What Apple has done for apps, they will do for AI.
The article was more skeptical. They were kind of like, I don't know if anyone's going to pay that, but that's what they think the pricing's going to be.
Well, look, the next logical move for Apple is not to come up with this themselves. It's literally to just build the platform so that people can build the agents or build the models or the prompts or whatever that you download to your Apple AI device or your desktop or whatever it is. And Apple already has the connected ecosystem. So if you have a fire-breathing, M3 or M4 or M5 Mac back at your house, and it has access to all of your files and all of your data and not necessarily everything in the Apple cloud, then Apple can leverage your stuff to do your AI queries. And the M architecture hasn't been terrible for running those. So imagine that you talk to the AI on your phone, but it's really just talking to your Mac back wherever it's running off of the wall. And you have app developers that are developing newer, better models and new apps, finding the cool stuff. And so then you end up just downloading a little component that runs like an application, but runs within Apple's AI. So you've got Siri for baseline functionality, but then, like Bob Smith comes up with a really amazing AI to help you, dig through past bills, or an AI that can respond to D&D queries. Like, what are the rules for the latest D&D, or an AI that can respond to whatever. And you just install that like an app, but it's really just a plugin that provides more context and more information for the AI. But it doesn't even really have to run on your phone, because your phone can connect back to your computer the way that it does for text messages and everything else. and then Apple just makes money. Like they don't have to even think of that or invent that or deal with that whole ecosystem. They literally just build the platform that lets a developer do that, and then they have all of these tens of thousands of developers doing that to come up with whatever. And would you as an individual pay $20 for access to that ecosystem? Yeah, you probably would.
We have the internet, but
but the internet is quickly becoming useless. You need an agent doing these things for you. And then imagine what else that enables is like you just tell your AI agent, hey, I would like to stop paying for TV now.
You should not voice these thoughts because they're just taking notes and they're going to make the experience worse for all of us.
I mean, I would be like, I'm thinking like, what would I pay for that's $20 a month? And like, how useful for me would it have to be? And it's like, there's an error in the billing on this. Look at this billing. Look at the past billing. Please rectify this with the TV company, or please rectify this for this, or please rectify this for that. And the AI can look at that and just do it. $20 a month? Psh, hell
but then
yeah.
the cable company pays twice as much to say, don't find errors in the billing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a game of escalation, and as long as Apple's one step ahead, that'll be okay. Look what Apple's doing with the ad hiding. We talked about that in the other episode. It's like they're doing a thing where you just touch on a thing that's being distracting on a web page and tell it, it's like, hey, Safari, I don't want to see this. If they capture that data in aggregate, then they're going to completely change how end users experience websites, and they're going to pull away all of the ads and all the distracting stuff. And so that business model basically goes away because every Apple user is never going to see that. If you tell your AI, I would like for you to filter this content or do this or organize that or go and collate this, because you told an AI to go to The Verge and pull their top headlines and reorganize it for you in some kind of a thing, that's not Apple doing that. Totally okay.
It's an RSS feeder.
Well, it's an RSS feeder with more steps, which they turned off RSS feeders because people were using RSS feeds to not go to the website to not get the ad dollars. But now Safari is actively hostile at deleting the ads. What an amazing future! Because they deleted the RSS feeds, now the ads are being, they're being hunted.
The history really is just cyclical. Actually, the content is the ad now, right? Like,
yeah, and that's an excellent lead into our Vox story.
These Olympic AI ads feel bad for a reason. This article talks about the
Gemini.
ones that it talks about all the ones we were talking about earlier about the crypto ads from like 2022.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a bunch running right now during the Olympics. I haven't seen them. I did look up this particular one because they were talking about the AI helping your kid write a letter. And it's like, shouldn't you be helping your child have that, the bonding experience, but also like helping them develop their own thoughts and like literacy.
But Jeff Bezos requires those same parents to work 18 hours in the warehouse a day. There's no...
Yeah.
In order to be able to afford the children, they're going to have to work 18 hours a day.
Please write this letter. And they try to make it seem heartwarming in the commercial, but all the comments were turned off.
But if you pay Apple $20, they can have their AI read your diary and understand who you are, and then create a digital twin of you and have your AI do the thing with your kid as opposed to you doing the thing at Amazon.
Well, you just work as a robot, and then the AI gets to live as you, as the human.
Well, you should take pride in the fact that the work that you're doing at Amazon as a human is the stuff that they can't figure out how to have the robots do.
Oh.
What makes you human? What makes you human is that you're doing a task that AI hasn't figured out yet.
I hate this future.
That should give you pride in your work. It's going to be amazing.
There's going to be posters with that at Amazon soon.
Yeah. We were also talking a little bit before the stream about this story, and it's like, it's going to be like an Ender's Game where they just come steal Ender.
The AI tech aiming to identify future Olympians. This is a marketing story. This is just a thing that they have running, I guess, at the Olympics, where kids can go through and run, and it'll try to like tell you, are you going to be a sprinter, or are you going to be a gymnast, or whatever. But there is kind of like the dark underlying future of like, are they going to do something like that? Intel, I think, was one of the people put on, and they're like, we delete all the data afterward. And I'm like, no, you don't.
The AI is getting better and better. And so it's just like, the Pepsi Corporation has showed up, and we think your kid's going to be really amazing at basketball. Come to us, or come with us to the Pepsi camp, and let's do this. This is kind of already a thing with college, like high school and college basketball. It's definitely happening. Well, certainly my experience from high school to college, the recruiters would come and be very interested, especially if you played high school sports. And if you were any good at it at all, it's like, well, you can get a scholarship here. And I know people that didn't go to the college they wanted to because they could get a better sports scholarship through another college that had a specialty in whatever sport it was. And it's like, well, I don't really want to go there, but they'll give me more money, so I guess it's fine.
Sports.
Maybe we could do the same, like, not just with sports because there's so much money there, but maybe somebody could also do this with science, like identify the students that have science aptitude, and then like MIT could come in. It's like, good news, Timmy, MIT wants you. And then it's just like a bunch of consternation around the family dinner table. And it's like, well, Timmy, you really should go to MIT. They want to take you to MIT. It's like, I don't want to move. And it's like, no, MIT thinks that you're going to be really brilliant in physics. The AI says so.
I'm sure that'll be a movie eventually. They should have more scholarships for that kind of thing. I'm sure that there are some, but they're not nearly as prevalent as sports scholarships.
It was a few years ago, a few colleges tried doing a thing where it's like, we will give you a scholarship, but we want, 15% of your annual salary for the first 20 years after you get out. And that was not popular, but that is maybe not a terrible way to deal with some of those situations. I mean, there's definitely better ways, but there's also worse ways.
So my sister-in-law has something sort of similar. So she works in the healthcare industry, and like basically, but it was not a percentage of her salary. It was like, you have to work in our hospital network for the first, I think it was 3 or 4 years after graduation. But she said it kind of sucks. Like, she's like, on one hand, I got most of my school paid for, but on the other hand, it kind of sucks because I could be making a lot of money traveling, and instead I'm trapped in this network. Yeah.
I don't really have a good segue for our next story, but some crazy
This is an Earth
happened.
thing, yeah. Earthquake in Japan. Strong quake of 7.1 magnitude jolts southern Japan. Tsunami alert issued. Luckily, I don't think there was actually a tsunami, but always something you have to watch out for with a big quake.
Yeah, we were. This happened right around the time we were shooting, and not a lot of. It's a pretty massive earthquake, but they got a lot of warning. They issued a warning, and the thing that's happened a couple of times lately is people's iPhones have gone off, and it said, "Hey, imminent earthquake warning, move." And it's because the signal to the phone was faster than the earthquake. So the earthquake happened somewhere else, and the vibration was propagating somewhere else, and that takes 10 or 15 seconds. And so you get the alert on your phone. It's like, oh, that's the earthquake noise. I need to brace or get off the stairs or jump off the ladder or whatever.
Get under my desk.
Yeah, so that's cool. The technology is doing that and helping save human lives and that kind of thing. So yay.
There was some talk on some stores. I don't know if it was mentioned on this one in particular that there's a higher chance of a larger earthquake happening now because I don't know, something about
that's how it works.
That signature happened. They were well, I mean, sometimes they can be it's letting out pressure, and it's actually good to have lots of small quakes. But a big one like this, they were there's another one on the way.
Yeah, that'll be big news. Hopefully, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
But this was also big news. I was surprised by this.
I wasn't too much. Cate Blanchett says, no one got paid anything to film Lord of the Rings. I basically got free sandwiches. Yeah. She also got her elf ears. They mentioned Orlando Bloom for all 3 movies got paid $175K. I mean, and that was late 90s, early 2000s money, but still, that's not that much.
No, especially for as much work as they had to do and how they had to go do everything.
Yeah.
That's just... I wonder if
there was some weird Hollywood accounting around around most movies, but
$2.9 billion worldwide, highest grossing movie ever.
Yeah,
or one of the highest grossing movies.
Won a lot of Academy Awards too.
But you know what's not going to win any Academy Awards?
The Borderlands movie debuts with a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now I looked at this earlier; I think it's up to 4%.
It's so bad that the studio is going back to DMCA takedown videos where people were roasting it months ago just from the trailer.
Yeah.
So that's how bad it is. It's astonishingly bad.
The idea of making a I don't know, I'm not a huge Borderlands fan, so maybe someone will come for me in the comments, but I can't imagine how that kind of movie would work because the game is all about the shooting and the looting. You loot and shoot. That's all you do. There's a story, but It's just silly and kind of dumb. Like there's not really like.
If you were interested in the story, you'd probably be better off just watching all of the scenes from the video game.
Yeah.
Like, just go find a playthrough or a Twitch streamer. Find a low hanging fruit Twitch streamer that's streaming Borderlands, and it's like, let's start from the beginning and watch Borderlands, Borderlands 2, Borderlands.
It probably
3.
exists on YouTube already. A lot of games do that where it's like every cutscene.
Yeah, and most of those haven't been taken down as far as I can tell, so that's nice. Maybe. Possibly.
I wonder if Borderlands has a resurgence on Twitch. I haven't checked.
I
think it's always been fairly popular, but it's probably gotten up a little bit again.
That'll be interesting.
I think there was a surge in Fallout after the Fallout TV show came out.
I liked the Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. It was sort of a subgenre Borderlands game, if there can be such a thing, where it was sort of taking its unseriousness seriously, if that makes sense. And it was actually kind of fun. It was just.
The gameplay is good. I just don't like story wise. Like, how do you make a good, satisfying, cohesive story out of it? I think that would be a challenge.
It's always fun playing a video game where you're finding like ancient precursor civilization stuff. And it's like, ooh, what happened to them, and why is this like this?
Uh-huh.
This is definitely a story where I ask, why is this like this?
Well, see, I was excited for that. This is bait for me. I added this. Airbnb's newest icon property is a life-size Polly Pocket compact. You probably didn't have Polly Pockets growing up.
No, I definitely did not.
I had Polly Pockets growing up, and it's they were like little miniature like dolls, and like you'd get a house, a Polly Pocket like compact, and then there'd be like little tiny figurines, and they'd have a house and everything.
So the front of
this
this
is a
house
giant one.
Is glass, I guess.
If you continue, there's more pictures in here.
Yeah.
It looks just like the one I had when I was a kid. I can't believe someone spent the money to actually make this, and I'm like...
Even Airbnb being this, I just don't think that is...
Is Polly Pocket that big? I wonder if this is in response to the Barbie movie, if they'll release a Polly Pocket movie.
Engagement challenge, is it? I don't know.
I bet it is. It's a marketing stunt.
Has our discussion about this ruined your
algorithms?
Ads?
Yeah.
Like we did at one time with Barbie Dreamhouse?
Polly Pocket. They also, eventually they released a bunch of the little Polly Pockets. But I remember too, eventually they released a giant Polly Pocket. And I was like, we're just back to regular dolls now. Why would I ever want a giant Polly Pocket?
You know what else was amazing? Is
why else would I ever want this? Dolce & Gabbana launches Fefé, a luxury perfume for dogs.
Don't do this.
Some people have too much money.
You have Rue, and we're talking before we recorded this that apparently, yes, you have a dog groomer where Rue gets perfume.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ones I've tried. So like the local ones are all really good, and I don't really have to worry about them using strong scents on her. But if I take her to PetSmart and do the grooming there, I don't know what they put on her, but it's super, super strong. Like it makes my throat hurt.
Yeah, I didn't have to deal with that with Mom's cat. And in fact, the vet would not trim her claws because she was, as an old cat, as an outdoor cat, she had never had her claws trimmed before. They would just be trimmed naturally by the shenanigans she would get into. And so she didn't know how to deal with somebody that wanted to trim her claws. So
you have to train them from a young age, I've heard, like to have their paws handled. I did that a little bit with Cricket, though we don't trim his really either. But he's got lots of scratching posts.
It turns out that it's maybe a little bit more of a problem when the cat becomes older and just doesn't want to fool with scratching posts anymore.
Yeah.
Or anything. So I don't know. It's but yeah, no, can't recall any time taking the cats to the vet that it's like, oh, you know what would be good is we just
more perfume. Yeah.
One time the cat seemed like it came back cleaner, and I was like, hey, what happened? And they're like, oh yeah, we noticed that she got into like dirt or something, so we just wet wiped her fur. And it's like, okay.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm okay with that. So last time I took her to the vet, I asked her, sometimes she gets like a little bit of dandruff, and they told me just to give her like a fish oil treat.
Yeah.
And that apparently solves it. It seems to be working.
Neat. You know who does not deserve a fish oil treat?
Parody site ClownStrike refused to bow to CrowdStrike's bogus DMCA takedown.
What makes this delicious is ClownStrike is run by a lawyer.
Also, I went to the website because I was like, I gotta know now. And the website takes forever to load, and it's not particularly like offensive or anything. It's just like a clown image. Like,
well, this was hosted behind Cloudflare, which is just Cloudflare took it down, even though the lawyer said, "Here's my counter notice. By the way, this is the address of my law firm," and Cloudflare ignored that and just took the website down anyway. So now it's hosted in Norway, on the other side of the planet.
And now we all know. I wouldn't have known about this website if they had just let it be. Like, sometimes you just got to let things be.
This is a website, of course, making fun of the CrowdStrike outage, which is amazing. And CrowdStrike finally did respond, and they just said, we were trying to take down people using our logo fraudulently. ClownStrike never used the logo. Didn't even use anything that vaguely resembled the logo, in my opinion. And they said, "Oops, we accidentally caught these people. We didn't mean to," which is a lie, I think.
It's absolutely a lie.
So,
we didn't think anyone would notice, and now there's stories being written about it, and now everyone's going to that website, and it makes us look worse than we already do.
Yeah, it's
just added us another week on the press cycle of everyone pointing at us and saying, "Look what you did."
CrowdStrike has always been a really interesting product, but they depend on having an insane number of customers in order to get the data to protect an insane number of customers. So it's really, like, if you realize there's an aspect of the product that is very much Emperor's New Clothes. And so if your customers start to realize that there is even a tiny aspect that is Emperor's New Clothes, they'll lose confidence in the product. So I get why they're so aggressive, but they don't really need to be aggressive.
Just wait like a news cycle or two, and it'll fade out to the background. But if you keep bringing it up, like, it'll make it worse.
DEF CON's going on this week. We'll probably have some amazing stuff to report on that next week. And so there's probably going to be a lot of ClownStrike stories out of DEF CON.
I did see a Reddit post that was like, "I'm on my plane to DEF CON," and someone had already hacked the screen in the back of the seat. Like, there was a Linux stuff on it. I was like, oh, crap.
All right, so I'm sure we'll have much more of that fun stuff next week, and Ryan will probably be back next week if things go well. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Good luck to him. We'll see you next week.